All right, I show 1 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. We've got a full packed 30 minutes, so I don't want to waste any time. First, I want to thank you so much for joining us today as we talk about contact cleanup and best practices. I'm Courtney Kearney, founder and owner of C. Kearney Consulting. Thank you so much for joining us, and that's what my hair used to look like pre-COVID. I did the COVID chop and donated 14 inches of hair. And the teal and maroon is finally back now that the hairstyles stylists are open. Without further ado, let's talk about what we're going to discover today. Today, we're going to talk about the holiday contact madness that some of you might be enduring right now. Data hygiene, what is it? What's the point of it? Maintenance, my favorite topic. We're going to talk about tips and tricks for maintaining your data, specifically your contacts. And I'm going to show you some Excel techniques. First, we're going to start with the holiday cards and the madness that ensues when it's time to send out, whether it's physical cards or e-cards. You got to have emails, or you got to have addresses, or you got to have both. So hopefully after this, you can stop the madness moving forward, or at least reduce it. So my first poll question, we're going to launch now. It's a two-part question. First, do you pass around a contact list for people to review, yes or no? If so, is it electronic or paper? If you don't pass anything around, you can answer that one. If it's old school and they write handwritten markups and give it back to someone, or if you pass around a PDF and you use the electronic markups within Adobe PDF, or do you have an individual spreadsheet that is sent around, everyone gets their own individual, and then someone, poor soul, has to reconcile them all? Do you use a live spreadsheet, whether it's on a SharePoint, a server that everyone can make live changes to? Or do you have some other secret option? And if so, please drop it into the Q&A chat window, because I'd love to learn what you guys are doing. We're at 82% participation for the poll. I'll give it about 15 more seconds. Let the rest of you vote. Perfect, we've got a first timer, so no process. Okay, we are at 83% participation, so I'm going to close the poll and let's see the results. Do you pass around a contact list? 73% of you do. Of those that pass it around, thankfully only 4% are old school pen and paper. None with electronic markups, 19 with individual spreadsheets. I'm curious who the poor soul is that has to reconcile them. And then 50% of live spreadsheet with live changes. That is fantastic and definitely higher than I thought, so well done. All right, hopefully you are back to my slides. If that is not what you are back to, please drop a link in the chat and let me know that you don't see my slides, or raise your hand. So the live spreadsheet is definitely the way to go, making live changes, but we've got some best practices around how to do that. So I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet that you see on my screen, but I'm going to pull it up into Excel. Do you see, hopefully you see my Excel. If you don't, again, raise your hand or drop it in the Q&A window. So this is an example of a holiday card list that you might have pulled. If you've got, oh, Ida, do you not see it? Let me make sure that it is sharing the correct thing. All right. Now, do you see Excel? I see it. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that. You never know if technology goes crazy on you. So once you export it from hopefully a CRM system, if you're maintaining it in Excel, then you're already there and you don't have to export it. The first two columns that you see were created after export. Upon export, we took the company name, first name, last name, the email, the phone number, the cell phone, address information, and then who owns the contact within your company. So what you'll see is that this column is filtered, and then these were added after the fact. The reason I wanted to filter this one is in the event that, say, Valerie wants to see only her contacts that are assigned to her, she can go ahead and reduce it to just her contacts. Or if I'm the one cleaning and I only want to see mine, you can quickly filter through. Now, if you've got Excel newbies and the filter scares them or they don't quite understand that, you absolutely can copy the information that pertains to them and drop it on a separate tab. So if you do want to keep, some of you said that you were passing around individual lists and then reconciling them, this is a way that you can kind of do that in the same spreadsheet. Going back to our main spreadsheet, if I reduce the filter and I want to look at everything, when I come back over here, I've dropped in the approval status. So when you start this spreadsheet, everything would say select. And as you move through, you would select what needs to happen. It's approved as is, everything's good. It needs some sort of updating. We'll tell you what this means in a minute. Maybe they need to be removed. Maybe they've retired, or they need to be deleted because they shouldn't have been in the system in the first place. So if you say update is needed, it turns red. The instructions on the instructions tab, I always suggest if you're going to send out an Excel spreadsheet to your employees that you put the instructions in the spreadsheet on the first tab. So you'll see in the first column, we want you to make a selection. If update is selected, you need to add a row. So add a row directly below that contact. We do not want our original information to change because then you lose the ability to know what changed. So what you'll do is add a row, and then in column 1, say this is the corrected information. We want to know who's adding that corrected information. So you'll put your name in column B, and then enter the correct information in the new row and add any notes that are needed. So for our example here, maybe the name is misspelled. So I'm going to say info or corrected info. I'm the one making the change. That's fine. But maybe her name only has one A. You'll see that it is making it hyperlinked. I do suggest leaving them. I'll show you why in a little bit as you move through the presentation. Everything else is fine, so I don't need to change anything else. Now, as you'll see down here on ones that I already did earlier, maybe the phone number is what changed. Somebody transposed that one. Down here, this one was changed. So maybe this one, the email address was incorrect. So as I move through, you can absolutely put your notes over here. So phone number was wrong, email was wrong. They have a new address. So here's, or a new office, excuse me. So here's the new address. The relationship has changed. So Rebecca is now owning this contact. This way, as you go through, when you get it back to put it back into your CRM, you can filter by all the corrected information and quickly update your CRM. You can also see what needs to be changed and updated and who did it. Let's see. Hopefully now you are looking back at the PowerPoint. If you are not, please raise your hand or drop it in the chat. We're going to move on to data hygiene, kind of the overarching idea behind contact cleanup and the wellness of your data. Hygiene is a practice, not a project. There is no end date to hygiene. There's no date that you can just stop brushing your teeth forever. You only have one set of teeth. You only have one set of data. You've got to keep it clean, and it's a practice. Data hygiene. The goal is accurate, uniform, consistent, complete, and data that is unique. That is considered hygienic or cleansed. You want to be able to do further enrichment to provide valuable insight to the business so that you can perform analytics on your clean data. The goals of data hygiene, you want to develop a develop a complete data set. So in our industry, this looks like every opportunity has an estimated start date. This allows the analytical tools to run seamlessly, and you have confidence that it is pulling all of your pursuits. Not a single report or single record is missing that date, or your analytical tool is now incorrect. If every opportunity has a start date, then you can accurately make projections based on your start date. So you can look at a rolling 12 months, a rolling 18 months to say, based on our start date, what does the next 18 months look like? This improves your data-driven decision-making. If accurate projections can be made, then leadership can derive business insights and make decisions based off of that data. I used opportunity start date for our example. You can use anything. If it is your opportunity fees, if it's your project information, your square footages, any of that, you can start to drill down into what your complete data sets need to be for the decisions that you're making. The cleaner the data, the more accurate the analysis, the better the marketing strategies, and the stronger the business decisions. This is our ultimate end goal whenever we're working with data. Now, how do you keep data hygiene? It is a practice. So the practice piece of data hygiene is maintenance. So looking at maintaining your information, I always say distrust and verify. So if I'm looking at a widget on a dashboard, I want to have a report to back that up so I know that I'm looking at a complete data set. When I go to email out a campaign, I want to make sure that all of my contacts are receiving that campaign. So every record in my CRM needs to have an email address. Or if I'm going to send out a report or the holiday card, everybody has to have an address, or now I'm missing certain people. Poor orphans, they don't need to be running around your CRM. You always want to have an owner, an internal employee own that relationship. Now, it could be more than one owner. For my company, Valerie and I might know the same individual. Now, we have different relationships with them, but we both have that relationship. Now, you want to be able to have multiple relationships at a company, but every contact needs to be owned by someone. Now, you might say, I'm just the marketing coordinator that is entering this person because we had to submit an RFP. If you're the one entering that information, still be the owner, but you can have a category that might be secondary owner or to be determined relationship, what have you, so that everybody that follows you knows, oh, Rebecca put that in because they had a submittal due. Now I need to go develop that relationship as the business developer. But there shouldn't be orphans running around your system. If no one claims that contact, we have no idea why they're in the system. We have no idea how they got there. Then make them inactive. But you should be able to have a contact for an owner for every contact. The other reason for this is that it helps ensure that no contact walks out the door if you have an employee leave. So all of my contacts have an owner. If I run Rebecca's contacts and Rebecca leaves, then I can say, okay, to Rebecca's manager, here are all of the contacts. Is a replacement going to take over the relationships, or are we going to evenly disperse them amongst the current employees? You don't want to just not do anything with those contacts. You want to let them know, Rebecca's left the company. This is now your point of contact. We value your relationship. We value the work that we do with you. Please stay in touch with us, what have you. Project information. This is important for all those marketers on the call because you never want to be looking for a criteria like you're working on a proposal and you need the top 5 projects of $1 million over 100,000 square feet. Well, if your projects are missing square feet or dollars, that's going to not turn up the results that you want. Same thing with if you're looking at doing the in progress for the 305. If you don't have percent complete for every project or at least a status, then it's not going to pull the information that you want. Now, you want to be doing this and maintaining it on a regular basis, not in a 911 proposal emergency or the email's about to be sent. You want to be doing this on a schedule. When I was running a database for an engineering company, I did it every Friday. So I had my maintenance or audit reports that I would just go and run. There might be 3 new contacts without an email. I would email those owners and say, hey, do you have the email for this person? Or I would make that field required. Some companies, I understand you get pushback from required fields. It's a cultural decision as to what you make required. But if it's not required, you have to go and fill that data in. Now, this brings me to your opportunity fake placeholder data. If you do make something required, still monitor it. Again, distrust and verify. So if you make a fee, estimated fee required, and someone put in $1 just to get past the requirement, you want to be monitoring that. So I would every Friday look for what is less than, or what is equal to or less than $1. Then they caught on and they started doing things like $5 or $10. Well, I knew that we weren't going to pursue work that was less than $500,000. So that was my new cutoff. Because I knew that the widgets that we were projecting on the dashboard that leadership was looking at. So if they saw that our projections were lower than expected, they were going to go pursue more work. Well, what if they were just lower because people weren't making the right guesstimate and filling out that fee? So really you want to look at your data. These are just 4 examples of data points. You know your firm better and what you should be maintaining. To keep specific email campaign list, thinking about the holiday cards again, or the holiday e-cards. If you can automate the data transfer from one system to another, so from your CRM to an email platform, then you absolutely want to be able to automate that if possible. Going back to the owners and my last slide, Denise had put in the Q&A box, well, what if you have multiple owners? It gets hard in the Excel spreadsheet. Absolutely, and that's where you can start to use some of the Excel features to break it into separate columns so that you can have multiple owners displayed and you can still see who either the primary is if you designate it that way, or you can have each row be owned by a specific owner if you don't want to have multiple owner columns. There are multiple ways that you can work around that, absolutely. So looking at your unsubscribes, you definitely want to regularly monitor this and review them. You never want to be paying for a contact that you're not emailing because they've unsubscribed. Your business developer also might want to know why they've unsubscribed. Do they not want to hear from you? Is the relationship gone south? If it's an active client and they've unsubscribed, you definitely want to make sure that you are watching that. Don't stop there though. Definitely go through and reconcile with your CRM. If you are pursuing a specific person and that person unsubscribes, then you want to note that in your CRM so that you can track that along the pursuit and that relationship. Oh, this is a big one. Monitoring duplicates. I wish I could figure out a way to automate this. So if anybody knows how to do that, let me know. But monitoring duplicates is a big deal. Someone got married and it got updated in one database but didn't get put back in the other. Having that be reconciled and looking for those duplicates is important. Or if someone leaves and you move them in the CRM to the new company, but their new address didn't get transferred to the email platform and their old email address keeps getting dinged, you definitely want to be maintaining those. Looking for errors and correcting them. So if you get an error message because maybe an @ got put in as an A instead, maybe the @ sign got left off of an email address, or the .com didn't come across. All of that you want to look at. Now, maybe a bounce because of one of those errors, or you can track down where they've gone. We definitely know people are moving around right now, which leads me to, according to zoominfo.com, 37% of email addresses are outdated within 12 months. Those of us that this is our job is to track down that information. That stat makes me want to pull my hair out, what little I have left, because that sounds like that's an ongoing job for me, is to continue to track and maintain that information. I can't just go, okay, we sent our holiday card, we're done. You got to do it every quarter at least so you can stay up to date on that information. Some of these points, especially the email validation, there are services out there that will do that for you. It's very important to stay off of the blacklist. If a MailChimp or a SurveyMonkey or a Constant Contact, if you get blacklisted on any of those, you cannot send email campaigns, or you will have to do it in short little 200, 500 bursts. So that is a real thing to pay attention to. One way to avoid this is to always validate your emails before a big campaign. Zero Bounce is running a special right now. So for the next 14 days, you can get 40% off of your credits. You just purchase credits for every email that you want to validate, and it tells you whether it's valid, the email went through, and it just pings it. It doesn't actually send them an email. If it bounced, if it hard bounced, soft bounced, there's a whole list of validation criteria that it goes through, and then you get those analytics back. Now, if you're up against a deadline, you can absolutely send out the email to all those that were valid, and then spend the time to work on the ones that were invalid or bounced. We do have a question in the chat asking if we will share the PowerPoint. Absolutely. There will be, it will be available on the website, and we will email everybody. After this completes, you'll get a survey notice, and then we'll also include it in a follow-up as well. I did not receive it in an email. Okay, no, it was not distributed ahead of time. So some more stats from the Data Loving Marketer. In the next hour, 58 business addresses will change. 11 companies will change their name, and 41 new businesses will open. Now, this is a stat from leadspace.com from 2019, so I am sure that these numbers are far higher thanks to 2020 and the craziness that we've all endured. But my whole point of this is that these statistics should show you that data hygiene and maintenance is forever ongoing. There is no stopping point. Now, the good news is your employees are the best resource to keeping your data up to date, but you've got to make it easy for them. So that leads me to some of the Excel techniques that I showed you earlier. I could go on and on about how to make it easier for your employees, whether that's within your CRM system, whether that's at the point of entry of however you're recording your pursuits. Just really looking at it from the user's perspective and saying what is necessary, let's reduce it down to that, and then making things conditionally required along the way, or having the interface be different according to markets. The people that are chasing healthcare care about the number of beds or the number of ORs. Those that are chasing higher education don't. Now they care about the number of classrooms. So different fields can show up for different people that are in the markets that you're chasing. Now, to get into Excel, you'll see my Excel nerdiness come out. Some of these are very basic, but I never want to assume the level of expertise of my audience. So bear with me if these first couple are basic. One of the things that I always suggest, especially now that there's so many of us working from home on a laptop screen that might be smaller than what we're used to at an office if you're sharing two screens or have a different monitor. You want to use the freeze panels so that if people are on a minimized screen, they can still have the information that's necessary in front of them. So as we looked at the Excel, as I arrowed over, you'll see that my company, my first name and my last name, stayed stagnant, as did my first two columns. This way, as you get down, you can absolutely keep the header, whether it's at the top or the left, stagnant. To do that, you just click where you want it to stay frozen. And then in the view and freeze panels, that is when you can freeze those. I mentioned this earlier, but having multiple tabs is important. So the values tab, I always hide. I left it open for this presentation, but I always hide it before sending it out to my users. My instructions is always where I start. So anytime an employee opens this spreadsheet, that instructions is the landing page so that they know what they're supposed to do with this. Then is the contacts. And then again, if you want to disperse it amongst your employees, you can create separate tabs. One of my favorites in Excel is I want to reduce the number of free text fields because Stephanie might say, yeah, it's good. Or she, Denise might say needs updates instead of update needed. I want to be able to filter as quickly and efficiently after I get the spreadsheet back or we've reached the end date of edits. So this way I can control what people select instead of allowing them to type. So to do that, you first have to create the value list of what you want to have in that dropdown. I always suggest the very first being the select dash. That way people know that there's something to select there. If you leave it blank, they only know that it's something that is selected if they click on that cell. So if you have the word select there, then it's a cue to them that they need to do something in that cell. Once you have that data list ready, you go to A2 in the upper left-hand corner. You click data validation, and then you select list. You select your variables, and now you have a drop-down. So what this looks like in my Excel, there is my values for both the cleanup column and my employees or the owners. That is why I always hide this after the fact so that people cannot change those value lists. I don't want somebody adding a come discuss with me or call me about something. So once you're on your contacts, that is where that list is coming from, and you want to be able to have that select be visible so that they know to look for that. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you attending today. Looking at the chat window. All right, I'm going to go back to PowerPoint. Hopefully that came back up for everybody. The next tip for Excel is if you are able with your CRM to look at your hyperlinks. You absolutely want to keep those if possible. I do see in the chat that we've asked if states are dropped down. I didn't do that, but you absolutely can do that. I didn't take that step since the users that I was looking at wouldn't interact with that very much because we were focused more on emails. So looking at the hyperlink, if you copy it out of your CRM or export it with hyperlinks, I've done so for the first and last name. What's helpful about this is that if they want to change it, hopefully they will want to, and that you can encourage them to change it straight into the CRM system. So if I saw that her name was misspelled, if I clicked it, I could just go straight to her record and click edit. So that's always helpful if you give that option. Now you still want them to make that note in the spreadsheet so that whoever's creating the email campaign knows that, or the address labels for your physical mailer. But then you don't have to re-import that information, or they can look for that information. What do I miss? Who, what pursuits are we doing with that individual? What have you. So that gets us to 1:30 on the dot. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking 30 minutes out of your day to spend with me to talk a little bit about data hygiene and the dreaded, hopefully not dreaded anymore, holiday cleanup list. We are here to help in any capacity. We want you to know that you are not alone. So please reach out. After you drop out of Zoom, you should get a survey. Please take 2 minutes to fill it out. It's a quick survey, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.